Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the JT Effect. I'm your host, John F. Thomas. I'm glad to see y'all tuning in. As soon as you come in, please hit the like button, hit the share button, leave a comment to let me know what you're thinking, because we're going to touch on a very important topic about China basically becoming a huge superpower. And to me, it's like, why aren't we really talking about this more than what we should be, right? So again, before we even start, hit the like button. Put B1 if you're black first before Republican, black first before you're Democrat, black first before anything else. It's important to be black first before we start committing to anything else. Also, it's Juneteenth weekend, so happy Juneteenth to you all. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers. I want to say, hey, I salute you all. If you're, out there doing your job and giving your kids and your families the love they need and giving them support that they need, because we all need fathers. We all need strong black figures within our community. Before we get started, let me hit that intro and we'll be right back.
Just share with me your thoughts. Don't be afraid to talk to me and show me who you are. I wanna know talk to me.
It's the JT Effect. Nothing else can make you feel like that. It's the JT Effect. Nothing else can make you feel like that.
Talk to me. Just
Hey, welcome back. And for all those who are tuning in, please make sure you hit the like button. We need to support Black-owned media so that this can get out there more. Again, I'm your host, John F. Thomas. Welcome to the JT Effect. Subscribe to the JT Effect on YouTube if you haven't already. And also subscribe to the Black Boss channel, because I'm on there as well if you haven't, if this is your first time being there. And type in B1 in the chats if you believe that you're black first before anything else. If you believe in that, I'm black first before I'm a Republican, black first before Democrat, black first before whatever your political alliance is. I'm black first. I put the black community first before anything else. So thank you all again for tuning in. I have a special guest to come in with us today. It's actually by popular demand. One of the people who are watching, they asked that I bring Frank W. Johnson back, and that's exactly what I did. So Frank, welcome in here. What's going on, brother? How you doing?
I'm here, man. I'm doing the best that I can. As y'all can see, I look a little bit rough this week, man. I Juneteenth from 9 to 9:30 yesterday in all parts of Memphis. So I'm looking rough, but I'm gonna get through this.
No, man, you're looking good, man. You're looking good. And I see Denise in here. B1 back to you. Darlene saying Happy Father's Day. For sure, Happy Father's Day to all the black wonderful fathers out there. To my father, Happy Father's Day.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't be here without him. And I know your father, Frank, was an amazing man, because you talk about him a lot.
Mhm.
So definitely Happy Father's Day to everybody out there who is stepping up to the plate, even those who the kids aren't even yours. You're stepping up to the plate to be a father. The father figures out there. You're not even a father. You're not even a father, but you're a father figure. Happy Father's Day to you as well. So what I wanted to talk about today was something that I've been noticing recently, especially with the recent information that came out on COVID, but we'll touch on that soon. And for those who don't know, Frank is let me reintroduce him. He is a teacher and activist, community activist in Memphis, Tennessee. So it's very smart, very well educated, very articulate. He's like a walking history book is what I basically say what Frank is, because he just retains information so well. Man, it's amazing.
Read these things, y'all. They still work. Read these things. They still,
Right?
they still work.
Yeah. So my question, okay, so let me phrase it this way. If we look back, China has been amassing power for years. I think that the U.S. government has, in a sense, overlooked this, I guess, to put it subtly. And and thought that it really, well, I guess at the time, and thought it wouldn't affect them. But as we look at what happened over the decades, China has become so powerful. And my question is, how did this even happen?
Well, first thing I'm going to say is, again, you started out right. You started out with the history. But let's remember, China would not have the power and the status that it has right now had we not allowed it. And the primary reason why this was allowed is because, honestly, industry in the United States chose not and did not want to pay its people. And so this has been going on, like you said, for decades. This was done through so-called competent people, through trade deals. Look at NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement. Obama was pushed to push the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the TPP, which kind of got out, and he had to kind of backtrack on that because that would have really buried, the American worker. But China has been, let's put it like this. China didn't come over here and steal factories in the middle of the night, the way a lot of these people will try to portray it. The reason why China has become powerful is because our American industries, and not just our American industries, but our multinational corporations, were looking for each and every way to increase their bottom line. That one of the ways that you do that is that you don't pay folks. And so they found places in the world, and China isn't the only place. They've been to Korea, Bangladesh, all these other places where they could pay people pennies on the dollar. Literally, that's what they're paying folks, pennies and nickels and dimes, and to save a profit. And so China said, okay, well, we'll do it for you, but we'll only do it if we are able to share, technologies and things like that. China just got smart. China just said, we're not going to come. We see really what you're doing around the world, and we're not going to let you do it to us. And our people, our representatives and our presidents, and this includes all the presidents for the last 40 years, they allowed these corporations to do it because all they cared about was making more and more of a profit. So how are you going to turn around now and portray China as being this devil or whatever, and saying that China stole something from you, but you gave it to them? You gave it to them. And so now the United States just finds itself in a position where it's a victim of its own greed. That's what we're talking about now. And the reason why even the United States became a superpower, an economic superpower, was honestly after World War II, all of its major competitors, their industries were destroyed. Germany was destroyed, Japan, Great Britain, France, because of Hitler. And so that was the only way that the United States actually rose to the prominence that it did. But as these countries begin to rebuild their infrastructure, you started to see a lot more competition. Japan, for a long time, was our competitor in cars. And the crazy thing about it is, I want everybody on your call and on your podcast, look at how Japan treats car sales. One of the things I learned about China is, like, the United States will always try to play the victim and stuff. Like, there are not too many American cars in Japan. And so they get up and they say, well, that's unfair. Japan is doing us wrong. Well, the reason why Japan does not allow that many American cars in, because American car companies don't want to provide the level of service that Japanese car dealerships do. Like, for instance, when you buy a car in Japan, that car, as long as you're making payments on that car, if something happens to that car while you're making payments in Japan, that Japanese car company is responsible for the maintenance, the care, and the repair for that car. Now, here in the United States, the first thing they're going to try to do is what? Find a way to charge you for something. But in Japan, no. If you are making payments on that car, if your car breaks down in Japan, they come take your car back to the dealership, repair it, give you a car to drive so you won't be inconvenienced, and bring the car back to you with no charge to you. That's why American companies don't want to provide that level of service. So Japan says, well, since you don't want to abide by our rules, we're only going to allow a certain amount of cars in. So this is what we're looking at. Like, the United States is not used to competition, but you gave these countries the access. You allowed these corporations to go in and do these things because you didn't want to pay folks here. And that's really in the long shot.
It's, I mean, it's amazing to see that America's selfishness is continuously allowing other countries to surpass us constantly, just because we're so, honestly, we as a country are so short-sighted.
Yeah.
And going from the leaders all the way down to just the people, and we're so short-sighted. We don't look at long term, because there's other countries that look at the China looks at the long game.
They looked at the long term. But see, that's what happens when you and that's what happens when you allow greed to take over everything. And that's what they have done. Like, I can take you back to my 8th grade year in junior high school, 1990. And we were saying then that everything was made in China. That's 30 years ago. And it was true. And so this globalization, as they call it, or this, they label it as being competitive with the rest of the world. Actually, it's not being competitive. What it is, it's a race to the bottom. It's a race to the bottom to see who will allow you to pay them the least. And they have always done that. In the mid-90s, there was this whole big scandal with Kathy Lee Gifford about her clothing line being made in Bangladesh. You know, where they just were paying these people, and they still do it now. Nike and all of these companies do it. They're in these countries because they don't have to pay people. You take these jobs because here, you know, there was some attempts at unionizing people, but they hit back at that. But they just didn't want to pay people. So let's take it to Vietnam. Let's take it down to Mexico. Let's go to these places where we can pay people little or nothing, and let's increase our profit. And so now you've stepped in it. And who can you blame? And see, now what the United States is attempting to do is they have to create another enemy. Gore Vidal, if you never heard of Gore Vidal, look up Gore Vidal stuff. He was an American playwright and historian. Grew up around the ruling class. He was a distant cousin to Al Gore. And his writings were all about the rich and the upper class in this country. And he says how we are the United States of amnesia because we don't remember anything. We don't care about history. The only thing that we worried about is right now, right here, and right now. And we're not looking at the big picture. You know, you want to create a thriving economy, you have to pay people to have that thriving economy. But they chose not to do that. And this is not anything new. I want people to understand the ruling class in this country has always done this. Go back and look at the Gilded Age in the 1920s. And it's amazing because here we are in the 2020s. And this is 100 years removed to when the robber barons, as they used to call them, or the titans of industry, you know, your Rockefellers, your Morgan Chases, and all these people, they were doing the same thing in the 1920s to people. One of the reasons why FDR had to create a minimum wage was because they were paying people pennies, making all this great wealth off government contracts and just not paying people. And then they would work people like slaves. They could work your children. There's one case what really set out the labor movement was that they would send children into the machines to fix the machines when they broke down because they could work you and your whole family. One little girl's hair got caught in the machine and the machine scalped her because they could work because they had no concern. It was all about the dollar. They own the places that you worked. They own the places that you live. What's happening in our country right now? We see a whole shift from home ownership to renters. You see BlackRock buying up that's the primary reason why we're seeing this increase in home prices, because these companies like BlackRock are going in and buying up with cash only, buying up whole neighborhoods, and you're turning people back into renters. This happened 100 years ago. The Rockefellers controlled where you worked. They owned where you live. So if they got pissed at you, they could put you out at any time. They could fire you at any time. And then they owned the stores that you went to. So what we're seeing is a repeat of what has existed in this country before, and the United States now, and not just the United States, but the entire Western civilization is feeling threatened because for the first time in about 400, 500 years, they will not be the controlling entity in this world. And as a matter of fact, it's going to be non-white countries that are going to be the power bases in this country now. And they are really trying to stop that. And they will go so far as to probably even start a war to prevent that.
Yes. it's interesting with all of that happening. For everybody that's tuning in, sorry, please hit the like button, leave a comment, and let me know your thoughts. I wanna know what you think about this as well as what Frank and I are talking about. I'm interviewing Frank W. Johnson. He is a teacher and a community activist in Memphis, Tennessee. Very smart, very well read, as you can see. And we're talking about China just amassing so much power and not being challenged as they should in regards to the rest of the world. So, well, Frank, I wanted to say it. So, with all of this, and just like you said, I mean, it's going to be the first time in I don't even know how long.
500 years since this
Yeah,
empire has
right.
been in place. They're not going to be no Western nation is going to be the superpower. And understand, the West feels that it should dominate the world. They feel that they should. This is their doctrine. Now let's remember, like we just talked about Juneteenth and the slaves, realized, finally finding out that they were free. Let's also remember that Western nations did this all over the world. They didn't just stop at Africa. They colonized India. They colonized Aboriginal Australia. They went down to South America, did all types of stuff too. And the majority of the world are black and brown folks. For years, for decades, they were shipping opium into China to get those people addicted to opium. They did the same thing in Japan. They have done this all over the world because they feel that they should dominate the world. But see, now that is changing. That is changing because, even Africa itself is coming up. They're organizing themselves, and for so many centuries, the United States has stopped this type of organizing among countries that they don't like. They have always set up puppet governments. They've done it in Haiti. They've really done it in South America. It's crazy. Look up 1973 Chile when they elected Allende as their leader, and the Great Britain and United States bombed the presidential palace down there. And guess what date that they did this on? September the 11th, 1973. The United States has always gone around the world and basically kicking out folks that they don't want, that won't do what they say, that won't do what their corporations tell them to do. And then they do these things, and then they destabilize these countries because these countries won't let them come in and do what they want. There is a shift that is happening in the world, and the West does not want to see that happen. It does not. And they will start a war because that's just how power obsessed that these countries are. I'm listening to Joe Biden this week, and they're going to criminalize Russia all over again. But show me how many countries that Russia has invaded in the last 20 years. I'll wait for you. Oh, well, Putin is a dictator. Well, let's talk about how Putin came to power. Because when Russia collapsed in the early 90s, the United States and all of our good Harvard representatives, your Lawrence Summers, your Alan Greenspans, the architects of our economy, went to Russia to reorganize their economy like ours. And it put those people through 10 or 15 years of pure hell. And then they not only did this to these people, but they manipulated their elections in the 90s to make sure that Boris Yeltsin was reelected. And unlike us, those people, the Russians, the people in Haiti, these other countries remember what the United States has done to them. Unlike us, we just forget over the weekend. Like Govardal said, we just United States of amnesia. They remember what the United States has done to them. They talk about it. They talk about it with their children, and they also make provisions so it doesn't happen again. So one of the things I want all of us to not do when we're dealing with this system of white supremacy, do not let them tell us who our enemies are. Do not let them do that. These people will have you hating folks in the world that are only fighting for their freedom. One of the things that I'm so happy now is that people are finally seeing the plight of the Palestinians. How many decades have they criminalized the Palestinians and made them look like enemies when basically it's your puppet, Israel, that you're giving weapons to, that you're doing all of this stuff with, that is causing the problems over there? But we ignore that, because Israel is one of our plants, and they are in that area really to suppress countries like Iran and these countries that they don't like. So one of the things that we cannot do, and What God? I can't think of his name right there. South Africa. Nelson Mandela said it when they tried to get him to say something negative about Fidel Castro, and he told his white man, "Your enemies are not our enemies," and that's the attitude that we have to take when we're dealing with this shift now, because this shift did not have to happen. If these people, like you said, were forward thinking, if they weren't all about the dollar, if you would have come to this country and paid people livable wages, been fair, we would not be seeing what we're seeing right now. But again, we don't want to share that power. We want all the dollars, and we don't care about people. So guess what? You have stepped in this hole. You have dug this ditch, and the United States has fallen into its own trap.
And for everybody that's tuning in, please hit the like button, share this video so that more people can see this, because you're not hearing these things on mainstream media that much. And that's what I'm wanting to present from the JT Effect here. Topics that you don't really hear about and that people don't talk about, and they want to tiptoe around. It's like I'm not trying to have that here. No, we're going to have the tough conversations. We're going to be honest, no matter how much it hurts. But that's where the healing happens. The healing and the understanding and how we move forward happens from that. So please hit the like button, share this video, subscribe to the JT Effect and the Black Boss channel if you haven't done that already. Frank, I guess my question for you now is with the let's move up to what happened recently with the COVID pandemic that happened. There was already even like how it started was kind of shady. Like something did not feel right with how it started, because I remember the doctor in China was trying to speak out about like, hey, that it actually started here or whatever, the stuff that he was saying, and he immediately got silenced. I believe he's been killed, because we haven't seen, because China is very they are extremely strict to, like, if you are not basically on code, if you're not on code, we're going to put you on code, or we're just going to make sure that you don't even live anymore. So everyone else is China first. We don't care if it's right. We don't care if it's wrong. This is what we want you to say. This is what you need to say. And if you're not on the same page, we will get rid of you. So that doctor disappeared immediately when he started speaking out and trying to get information about COVID-19. Then leading up to now with the recent, I guess, Dr. Fauci's emails being put out, and we're starting to get new information that actually it did originate in the Wuhan Virology Institute, and that we are funding that institute, maybe not necessarily for that, even though, because this is basically biological warfare, but I'm just really confused, because there was people within the Trump administration, or just in the government in general, that they're supposed to look at all the different things, like, hey, where could this have started? Maybe it's this, maybe it's that. But then it was immediately shut down. Like, no, don't. Because I was listening to NPR the other day, and the woman was saying that when she found out that someone told the team that was supposed to investigate that maybe it was manufactured. Maybe it was created instead of a naturally occurring thing. And they so like, you don't want to do that. That's a Pandora's box. Don't look into that. And I was just sitting there thinking, like, why is there so much? I mean, well, of course, to cover up, like, that the funding, America, our tax dollars, taxpayers are funding a country that basically created a virus that could kill you. So they wanted to cover that up, but also this is, why aren't they holding this country accountable? And they're withholding information. They're like, nope, we're not gonna. You can't even go in this area. You can't find out anything about this information. Go somewhere else. Yeah, it was a whatever you think it was. We had nothing to do with that. When in fact they did. And on top of that, I thought it was extremely shady when they were just like, oh, our levels were up initially, now they're down. Don't worry about it. And lastly, the last thing I'll say, that they mentioned that they were blocking people from coming into China, but if you wanted to fly out, that was fine. Even though this virus is very dangerous, and they know if you go somewhere else, it can spread so quickly. Why were they not being held accountable and just free reign to do whatever the hell they want?
Well, I'm going to start with this. Viral experimentation has gone on since we were able to do it. We have, research labs and things where we do the exact same thing. One of the things that I still want us to be careful of, even with these reports coming out of NPR and all these other things, the United States now is trying to place blame on its failed response. Now, when I talk about China got a lot of wrong shit happening in it. I'm not defending that. What I defend is what we have done, and then now we're trying to say, oh, well, look what that when we've done 20 times, things, worse. Now, one of the things about the crazy thing, like you said, we're funding the research. So evidently, you don't hate China that much, where you're paying them to do viral research. So again, what does it sound like the United States is trying to do? It's trying to cover up. It may have been a manufactured disease, but guess what? That's what we do as well. One of the things that I do give China is this. China doubled down on attacking that virus in their country. They built a hospital within a couple of days. We couldn't even find face masks for our doctors and nurses. We couldn't even do that. And then I want all of your listeners too, I want you all to go and check out a book, And the Band Played On. They made a movie about this in the early 1990s. It was about the early years of the HIV AIDS virus here in the United States. Now, when I saw the coronavirus coming, I already locked down because I lived through that initial epidemic of HIV AIDS. And one of the things that you're going to notice is the similar reaction of the United States. They let people die for almost 10 years before they did anything about that virus, not knowing where it came from, didn't even care. It was getting into the blood donation supply. That's how the tennis player Arthur Ashe got it, because he was a hemophiliac and he had to take blood transfusions. That's how he got AIDS, because they refused to even test the blood donation supply. They refused to do that, because they didn't think, well, it was only affecting certain populations, quote unquote, that they didn't care for. And then they didn't really make a move on it until rich people started to get it. And so what I really feel like, China messed up a lot of stuff in this, and there needs to be an investigation. But like you said, look at who you found was funding this lab. The United States, with our tax dollars. And so now what I really feel is the United States is going to try to amplify all of the mistakes that China made, to take the attention off the fact that China told us about the virus, sequenced the virus, and then provided us with a test to use. And the United States said, no, we're going to develop our own test. Again, Western arrogance. Western arrogance. Now, China is doing a lot of stuff. Like, for instance, they're going into their wooded areas. They're cutting down stuff that they should not be cutting down. You're also getting exposed to animals and things that we really should not be around. So there is that possibility that, it came out of nature, or it could have been, manufactured. I'm not throwing out any of those things. What I don't want us to do is to follow the lead that the United States is doing and putting all of the onus on China, and then completely ignoring the fact that we did not respond to this virus when we could have. We could not provide face masks and then told the doctors and nurses, like what you said about they were silencing doctors out of China. They had doctors and nurses here that they were firing, because they were going online and telling people that they're killing us in these hospitals. And one of the reasons why we did not have the face masks and stuff that we do is because hospitals no longer stockpile those things, because there's no profit in that. So what they do now is that they order as needed. But when you have a situation like Corona that comes upon you just like that, you don't have time to wait for Amazon to send you 500 masks. But in the olden days, hospitals used to stockpile PPE. They used to keep that stuff on hand just in case something like this happens. But all of our hospitals are now what? For profit. So it's not, we can't pull any profit out of that. Let's stop storing it and just order as needed. And we see what happens with that. But if there was, a lot of stuff that happened in China, yeah, it needs to be investigated. But what I don't want us to do is to go, oh, everything on China and ignore the fact that the most so-called advanced civilization and the richest civilization in the whole history of the world could not protect its own people against a virus because they're worried about profit. Now, China, them jokers built a hospital, in a week to treat COVID patients? And we got doctors and nurses going to work with trash bags on. And then I want us to also remember this. This planet is defending itself now because of these systems that we have in place. So one of the things, and I told you about my sister, John. My sister was a nurse up until 2014 when she developed the same brain cancer that my mom had. We grew up in a contamination area, so that's one of the reasons why I'm an activist. But one of the things that she was saying in the 1990s is that they were facing all new versions of old diseases that were coming back and that were killing people that were once upon a time treatable. But now these new versions or these new strands of these viruses we're learning, because one of the things that we have forgotten, being that we don't really get taught about science and stuff anymore, is that viruses learn. They adapt, they learn, and then they come back. And because we have been over medicating our population, because we have been hitting things with the strongest antibiotic, a lot of these viruses and bacteria have become immune. So in the 90s, go back and look at the reports that were being made in the late 90s about new variants of old diseases that are coming back that are not treatable. My sister was telling me right before she got sick, they had patients dying in hospitals of simple staph infections because the bacteria had evolved so much, they couldn't even treat it now. So we are just living in a time where we have attacked this planet. So let me take that back. We haven't. Our institutions, our corporations, we have destroyed this planet, and we are releasing stuff that has not been in play for probably thousands of years. We're cutting down trees in the Amazon, and there are creatures and animals in there that have not been exposed to humans for centuries. John, have you ever seen the movie Cujo? If you came up in the 80s, Cujo was one of the movies that you watched and this freaked the mess out of you.
Yeah, but I didn't catch that one.
So Cujo is about this dog that actually gets bitten by a bat and he develops rabies. And so the dog just goes mad. He entraps this woman and her son in a car for like 2 or 3 days. That's just how mad that the dog get. But one of the things that is clear in the video is that he gets bit by the bat. The dog gets rabies. The bat is carrying rabies, but the bat never develops rabies because you have animals that are carriers. They will never develop the disease, but if they bite me or you, that disease jumps over to us and becomes something completely different. And what we're doing is we're just going in, our corporations, we're cutting down this, to build parking lots, we're digging up that, and we're releasing things that should not be released. That's why it's still important now for us to fight these corporations and all these other things, because we are walking around the planet and contaminating our water supplies and things like that. I mean, this thing, when you get into this, it is so interconnected. This globalism, this blind corporate greed, it's all tied together. It is all tied together. Right now in Memphis, there is a whole fight against Plains All American, a pipeline company that secretly went around paying certain folks money, and they're trying to build a pipeline through an area we know as Boxtown. Crazy thing about it is Boxtown sits on one of the last clean aquifers on the whole planet. And they're not even concerned with contaminating this water supply. They're not even concerned about it. They are concerned about the profit. When we brought up about what this is going to do to our water supply, the lawyer for the company says, well, our business interests are concerned about their profits. What can you do without water? you do. You can't live without water. But this is the narrative. This is the narrative and the mindset of these corporations and these companies that we're dealing with now. The ones that move themselves over to China to not pay people. But at the same time, they're still here destroying whole ecosystems. They're contaminating water supplies. They are doing all of these things to make the environment unlivable. And this is their mentality.
You know, and the crazy thing is when you're taking your business over there, you're having to pay them in order to hold your business over there. So basically, we're taking money out of our pockets and giving it to somebody else in order for just that business to make money. And what about the people within that country? It's like, what about them? What about employing them? What about making sure that they are paid and taken care of? But you're empowering somebody else for your own short term.
Exactly. That's why the whole thing has to be brought down. Now, there are protests and stuff in China against this. Of course, you're not going to see it. I know one of the places where they make iPhones and stuff in China called Foxconn. They employ these people. Those people live at the facility. They have a high rate of suicide. I read one report where they had to put out nets because people were going outside the building and jumping off cliffs. So they put up nets to actually catch the people. I mean, this is even what they're doing to those people over there. They're organizing against it now because like this whole push of this global blind capitalism is not only killing us, but it's destroying the planet. And one of the things I want to go back to the issue with Corona. The planet, that's the reason why I say like this can go either way. It may have been engineered in a lab, or it could have been naturally occurring because now what the planet is doing, because the planet is a living thing like we are, it's fighting back. What we call climate change is the planet saying, look, y'all either stop this or I'm going to stop all of you. That's what it's doing. So we're going to see new diseases. Like literally the last 20 years, what have we been seeing? SARS. You've been seeing H1N1. The planet is sending out warnings saying, stop this, or I'm going to unleash my wrath and take out everybody. That's what's happening now. Yeah, that's what's happening.
I mean, it's basically like, because I was thinking about that recently with you mentioning that. It's just like if something is invading your body, right? And we are on Earth's body. If something is invading your body, you know, you have everything starts kicking into place. If it's destroying you,
you have an immune system.
You have an immune system that fights back. And whether that's like, okay, so if I catch the flu or whatever stuff like that, I get hot. My body temperature increases. So Earth's temperature is increasing
going up
to try to kill us off, because whatever this thing is that's on my body that's destroying me, I need to kill it off so that I can get back to my
normal state. I can get healthy.
My normal state.
And then the crazy thing, like the example that you just gave, there are bacteria and things in our body now that are in us right now, but they're not causing any problems. And so what? Our body allows it to do what it does. That's why it's so important to fight this blind and crazy capitalism. That's the reason, John, you know, like one of the points that I've tried to make about Memphis, Tennessee. Memphis is one of the most contaminated cities in the entire country. It never gets talked about. It never gets talked about. We have lead poisoning like crazy. Our situation with lead is worse than Flint's. Most people, the scientists that actually came in to work with Flint has been working in Memphis for the last, 6 or 7 years. And he says that our problem is much worse than Flint's because it's been going on for a much longer time. Add that to my neighborhood by the Defense Depot, which is the whole area is contaminated. They've been doing what they call remediation on this site since 1997. And the site has not been cleaned up yet. That's 24 years. We cannot drink our groundwater over here because it's so horribly contaminated. Our soil, our air, everything over here. And this is not just these two places. You got the refinery in President's Island. Memphis, I mean, up in North Memphis, there are so many, the old Firestone plant. Memphis is a horrible, contaminated city. That's one of the major reasons why our health disparities are so bad. But nobody talks about that. And when you dig into the history of the Defense Depot, who are you going to find? Yeah, that was a Department of Defense. That was an Army site. That was an Army storage site. But you're going to see names like Boeing. You're going to see these private contractors that were storing their chemical weapons up there, that were leaking into the soil, and nobody talks about that. You destroyed the vitality of this community, all of these communities at one time where it was nothing but black farmers over here. All this underground water, underground streams, just beautiful, plush, prime growing land. Came in and destroyed all of that. Just no forward thinking. And then even when they discovered the effects of these toxins, they didn't do anything. They just let us live. We're wondering why our kids got behavior disorders and learning disabilities and eczema, asthma, and all these strange and weird cancers. Hey, they were doing research on us for 30 years and didn't say anything about it. Then when we finally started to say something about it, it was, oh, well, the reason why your 11-year-old girls over there have uterine cancer is because they've had too many sex partners. 11-year-old girls now. So you look at how they've been doing this stuff small scale, and they've just really blown up to a global scale now. Like, these systems are destroying the planet, and the planet is saying, I'm going to kill every last one of y'all if I have to. That's why it's so important to be truthful about this, And so, like, if the United States really wanted to do something, instead of trying to get all of us to hate China, you'll be trying to come up with plans to where we can undo some of this stuff. But no, your concern is about global domination and about power and about profits.
So for everybody who's tuning in, still, if you haven't already, please hit the like button. We need your help, because we need, one, support for Black-owned media. This is Black-owned. So no white person is telling us what to say or what to do. Otherwise, we wouldn't even be saying this if they told us what to say or what to do. And make sure that you share this video so that more people can see this. We need this video out there so that more people can see this and hear this information that Frank is talking about and giving to us. Also, just subscribe to the Black Boss channel if you have not already. Subscribe to the JT Effect if you haven't. Frank, my question with all of this being said, why? I mean, and I think I already know the answer. I probably answered it already, but let me just play interviewer. Okay. So, and this is just for everybody else that's watching. Why isn't mainstream media making a bigger deal out of this than what it is? I mean, this is going to spell our doom, not only our doom, but the rest of the world, with how, like, basically how China's been running this government, how America has been running the government, and has been going all around the world. Just with all of these things that we just talked about, why isn't this a bigger deal?
Well, who pays their advertising dollars? The same companies.
Yeah.
You can't, and what, our media is owned by what, 5 companies now? I mean, Jeffrey Bezos owns, I think, the Washington Post and the New York Times.
He owns them?
They owned it. They bought them out. Yeah, they controlled information. 20 years ago, I was at University of Memphis majoring in journalism. I have an undergrad degree in journalism. One of the things that these old, and majority of my professors were white. One of the things that these old white journalists taught us was that we don't have news media in this country. That was 20 years ago. We don't have news media because the advertisers are the same people that own these companies. Bernie Sanders, when he did the presidential debate against Joe Biden, one of the things that Bernie Sanders said, and it was flat out, when he was talking about doing Medicare for all, and the first thing that the moderator said was how we're going to pay for it. Notice how we never talk about how we're going to pay for the military budget, which is like a combination of like the top 20 countries in the world. We don't talk about that, how much that's absorbing our budget. But what did Bernie Sanders say? He said that same lobby, that same healthcare industry that you're talking about right now is going to advertise on CNN tonight. So when they present something like Medicare for All, which will benefit everybody, they're going to say it in a way to make you distrust it. Well, how are we going to pay for it? They ain't going to sit up there and say that if we get Medicare for All approved for everybody, that fee that you're paying to that private insurance company, like for instance, if you're paying $300 a month for your insurance through private industry, that $300 is going to go away. And they're going to charge you something, a new tax, which is going to be far less than what that company was charging you. But notice how they have to frame the narrative to put you against it. Because who is advertising? Who's paying for advertising on that network? Cigna, Big Pharma. So they're not going to do anything or say anything that's going to upset or get in the way of that money and that revenue coming in. They're not going to do that. So you're not going to see it on CNN or MSNBC, or even, you're not going to see it on Fox News, because the corporations, they're owned by these people. This country has been bought up and controlled for so many decades now. And now it's just, hey, this is what it is.
See, I didn't even realize. I mean, you just, I knew Amazon was like getting more powerful. I know a lot of companies are getting way more powerful than they need to be. And so many monopolies, like huge monopolies, where they're gaining too much power and too much influence. But this is extremely dangerous, because now you have, and because remember, Amazon was getting a lot of flack from them not paying their employees, and not getting bathroom breaks and all, and then they were trying to unionize, and it came out that they basically discredited and tried to one of the guys.
They did. They messed it up.
So this is dangerous with them owning the Washington Post. So just like, hey, no, don't put that information out. Put it out that, these people, they're being reckless, and this person, he has a bad history. We're gonna look up some history. He has a bad history doing this, so he should be discredited anyway. So no, Amazon is doing fine. Amazon is doing great. And basically, what you were talking to your point earlier, screw the people who need the help. The people who are helping your company.
You demonize them.
Yeah.
Like look at what we're doing. Last year, low-wage workers saved this country. The frontline people. And we were clapping and saying all that little fake stuff. And then here we are this year, where they don't need $15 an hour because you need to crawl before you work. And who put that out? Who put that stuff out? These corporations did, because they don't want to increase the pay. They don't want to pay people what they're worth. And what have you seen? What you're really seeing when these people are talking about these people not wanting to work, what you're really seeing is a strike. Well, that's really what you're seeing. And because we have been, like your Darlene is saying, we have been so conditioned to deify the rich people, we don't even ask questions as to how they really made their wealth, because a lot of them are not rags to riches. A lot of them are riches into more riches. But we're bashing the low-wage workers all over again after claiming that they were our heroes last year. And what's really going on is that they're striking. And guess what? To all of the people out there that don't know, this is how you got a 40-hour work week, through strikes against the Rockefellers, against the Morgan Chases, against these titans of business in the 1920s. They did not provide you with anything. Your labor was all they wanted, and they took it. So just as Tennessee is a right to work state, guess what? You have a right to withhold your labor. And what you are seeing are strikes. Right now, there is a coal miner strike in Alabama right now. I can guarantee you that you have not heard about that. It's black and white people. Now, these same these coal miners took a deal with the company about 5 or 6 years ago. They took a cut in their wages to save the company. Now the company is profitable again, and they don't want to give that money back to the workers. Those workers been down there blocking trains and everything else. And if you know anything about a coal miner, that's dangerous work. There's even no reason why we even still digging up coal when we have potential for all of this renewable energy now. But they are fighting this thing. They've been blocking trains and everything now down in Alabama. But you won't see this on the mainstream media because, again, ideas are contagious. You saw strikes all last year. You brought up Amazon. One of the board members for Amazon last year quit because he was sitting in a meeting and they were talking about how they were going to smear the young black man that was leading those Amazon strikes. They were trying to say that he was inarticulate and unintelligent. Never mind that everything he's saying is true, but you're not going to deal with the conditions, but you're going to talk about him on a personal level. And then he was everything, but he was articulate, well-spoken. And even if he wasn't articulate and well-spoken, that does not give you the right to mistreat him. And so again, the mainstream media is owned by these same people. They are not going to put things like that on the media because they don't want, like, if I strike here in Memphis, they don't want you out there in California to see me striking, because that's going to give you an idea and tell you, guess what? We can do that out here. Mm-hmm. And also on the other side of that, there have been a few companies with people with higher wages that have now, they're trying to call back to work after these people have worked at home for a year. They're trying to call them back to work, and those people are saying, to hell with y'all. If you try to make us come back into that office, we're going to quit, because you have shown us over the past year that the technology exists to where we can work remotely, saving on gas. Guess what? You have less people driving. Guess what that does? That cleans what? The air. Exactly. We enjoy being around our family, being closer knitted. So why should we go back into this office for 8 hours and sacrifice our personal lives for your profit just because you want us in the office? So you have strikes really going on both sides of the wage ladder, and they're not even making those connections, because again, they don't want solidarity among workers, because that's going to stop this thing dead in its tracks. And I mean the whole thing.
This is our guest, Frank W. Johnson. He is a activist, community activist, and a teacher in Memphis, Tennessee. So, man, Frank, you are killing it, man. Because this is yeah, it's so much correct. Actually, what you said earlier, that reminded me of what you were telling when I had you on maybe a few episodes ago. Mm-hmm. with the strike that was happening. When was it? I forgot who died. So many of us have been dying at the hands of police. But when one of us died, and LeBron James and the NBA and the WNBA, well, women in sports first, but then the WNBA just been gangster the whole time. Right. Just been like, hey, look, we doing whatever. And then they were gonna strike, and they called in Michael Jordan, somebody who looks like us, who's not really for us, but looks like us. And who else? And Barack Obama. Mm-hmm. See, it's like United States, man, because they're pushing out so much stuff for you to get up. And Michael Jordan and Barack Obama to come in and tell them to go back and play. Yep. Basically, screw your own people, screw the progress that's going to be made, because now you started, because this is the biggest game. And remember, if that would have happened, just think what would have come after that. Just think what would have happened. That's one story that you would not have been able to hide. That would have been national mobilization. If they can do it, I can do it too. And again, notice who they brought out. Notice who they danced out. They danced all over. Obama ain't said a word about Breonna Taylor, ain't said a word about George Floyd, ain't said, only thing he been doing is going around here writing books and talking about how he couldn't do this and couldn't do that. Right. And dogging out the elder preacher. I can't think of his name because I know you're talking about. Yeah, that's the only thing, that's the only thing he's been finding himself to do. But you come out and you tell these black NBA players not to go on strike when they should have gone on strike. I mean, and that is the fundamental of our country. I mean, with the tea, when they dumped the tea over, there was a strike. Wait, but look, when you even go back and look at that stuff, that whole Tea Party thing, that was rich white people not wanting to pay taxes to Great Britain, because
Go and look up Gerald Horn, the historian. He teaches at University of Texas. He talks about one of his specialties is digging into the Revolutionary War, or what we think of as the Revolutionary War. He said these were rich business owners. And Great Britain, as bad as we're told that Great Britain, was, Great Britain had drew a line in the sand. They told those settlers, don't take your ass past this line and mess with them natives. And we are funding your exploits. So you're going to pay us taxes. Mm. These were rich white people, but it's never shown as that. It's never explained as that. That's the reason why, to me, you're seeing a pushback against what they have labeled as critical race theory. All that stuff is the truth. That's all it is. And when you start teaching truth about black folk, guess what you're going to have to start talking about too? You're going to have to talk about how these poor whites have been through hell. You're going to have to talk about how everybody else has been dogged out by this system. That's what you're going to start uncovering. But they don't want that. They want this nice little cute dolled up, everything, everybody's happy, and it's bull. And we know that's garbage. But see, now you have reached a point in this country to where you have allowed this mess to go on for so long. Now you can't put it back in the closet now. You can't do it. You just cannot do it. I've long held that Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and all of these people, in the civil rights movements, those were the last prophets. They were telling this country, that was the last shot, the last opportunity that this country had to be what it claimed that it was. And what did they do to those people? They killed them. They ran them out of the country. They imprisoned them. I preached a sermon last week. I said, can we finally get to a point in this country as black people to say that the civil rights movement did not end? It was killed off. It was shut down. And from that point on, we have been just basically on a suicide run right off the cliff. Martin Luther King talked about militarism around the world. He called the United States the greatest purveyor of violence in the world. And how do we still have these so-called people like Candace Owens and all these other black people just walking around half-ass quoting the I Have a Dream speech, but you won't quote the Why I Oppose the War in Vietnam speech. You won't talk about when he went in and said the next time we go to Washington, D.C., we coming for our check. That's what he said. And you quoting the I Have a Dream speech, you're quoting the end, but you damn sure won't talk about the beginning, when he authored a scathing critique of the United States. These people were saying these very same things. Globalism. One of the things that King said was, how is it that you sending poor people over here to kill poor people in Vietnam? The Vietnamese were coming in and dropping flyers on black soldiers, telling black soldiers to go home. Black man, this is not your war. These other countries knew it then. There would be no North and South Korea right now had it not been for the United States. Go look at the histories of these things, and we have to stop letting them tell us the history, because they're not going to tell you the truth. Russia is really the country that defeated Germany. But we don't hear that, do we? Russia fought Hitler the longest, lost over 20 million people fighting him. We don't hear these stories, but we hear that Russia is in the 1980s. I'm gonna tell y'all because I'm gonna put my age out there. In the 1980s, Russia was communist. How all of a sudden did it become socialist now? It's just funny in my life to watch these narratives, watch them switch up the narratives. It's crazy. But when you go and you look at the history of Russia, Russia was ready to make agreements and deals with the United States after World War II. But FDR died. And then the new guy, what was his name? Oh, God, I'm just being real bad with names. It's like Harry Truman. He takes over and feels that he has to, beat his chest at Russia. I have to, show that we're tough and we're strong. And that's when the demonization of Russia, the demonization actually started in 1917 with the Russian Revolution. And you know what that Russian Revolution was about? those poor workers in Russia rose up against the rich oligarchs and killed their ass and took over the country. That's why it was called the Soviet Union. The United States put troops into Russia to stop it. And then when the black soldiers came back from World War II, being exposed to that, they thought that the black soldiers were going to institute a Bolshevik type revolution here based on Russia, what happened in Russia. That's why they were hanging black soldiers in their uniforms when they came back from World War I. Because those black soldiers said, how in the hell are we going to fight for democracy all over the world and black folks can't get it here? And that's when you started to see this criminalization of communism. And so these people don't even know the definition of these things. They don't even know the definitions of this stuff. Go back and notice the labor organizing that was happening. There were two parties in this country that organized workers against rich people in this country. Guess what parties they were? Socialism Party of America and the Communist Party of America. And notice how those are the two things that we hate in this country. They're the ones that brought the labor unions with them. All these high-paying jobs these people had in the 40s, at the end of the 40s and the 1950s, were union jobs. Who organized them in the unions? The socialists and the communists. And you demonize them. Because why? The rich people did not want to pay their fair share. FDR threatened them. They didn't want to pay. But as soon as he died, they began to chip away at all of those gains that were made. The number one thing they did was criminalize socialism and communism. They had the McCarthy era, the Red Scare, when you could just say, I could say John is a communist. They would bring you into court. They would bring you, destroy your career, destroy everything about you just by me calling you a communist or a socialist. That's what they would do. This gave rise to many people that we're familiar with. Ronald Reagan, he was a B-list actor. He made his whole career snitching on other actors, saying that they were communists and destroying their careers. A few years later, he's governor of California. You had a rise of a man named Roy Cohn. Roy Cohn was a bastard. If you look in the dictionary and you see bastard, you're going to see a picture of Roy Cohn. Roy Cohn was an attorney. He went around just calling people communists. He would sit in as they were being executed, knowing that they were innocent. He goes on to groom Donald Trump and Roger Stone. He would persecute people for being homosexual and was homosexual himself. This is what this gave rise to. And again, it traces back to what? Greed. That's what it goes back to. That's why the real study of history, is so important, because you're going to start seeing the same things. You're going to see, they're going to demonize China. They're going to demonize Russia because, like Gore Vidal said, we have an enemy of the month club. Every month it's a new enemy. They have to create a new enemy now. You ain't got no more terrorism to throw at us. You have no more bad North Koreans to throw. You have nothing else. So they have to manufacture a new enemy. That's why you're seeing Russia being demonized all over again. He just went over and had a talk with Putin. Oh, well, Putin is a bad guy. Well, what are you? You all have bombed people out of existence. You all have manipulated elections all over the world, but I got to hate Russia because honestly, Russia is a competitor for you. Now, that doesn't mean that Russia hasn't done wrong things, but on my list of wrong things being done by countries, the United States is outdoing everybody. China actually called the United States on their problem with black people. Y'all didn't see it on the news, did you?
I remember that.
This is that Asian lady said, America, y'all have a problem with black folks and the police killing black folks, and this ain't no new problem. I'm at the house like, go ahead, sister. Because really, what can you say? And now the United States wants to say China has human rights abuses. Really? We got kids drinking lead-infected water that don't have to be.
They still haven't done anything with Flint.
They still haven't. They haven't done anything with Memphis. Flint is not the only city suffering with this.
Right.
New Jersey has the same problem.
You had Will Smith's son, Jaden Smith, have to come. I was sitting there thinking, like, why does a celebrity have to use?
And don't you just love how they love that? Oh, he's so wonderful. You have Army Corps of Engineers that are trained to do this. They should have been on the ground the day after this was discovered. And then let's even talk about how that situation in Flint happened. A water pipeline that I think Nestle wanted to build. A new pipeline that was not needed. But of course, when they want to build stuff, they actually get money to build stuff. Governor Snyder, who the Democrats celebrated as making a turn to Trump to Biden, said, okay, well, guess what? Appoints a city manager to Flint. Now, when you appoint a city manager, the city manager overrides the authority of the mayor and the city council. He makes all of the decisions. What he says goes. The mayor, the elected mayor, and the elected city council are powerless. So he says, the city manager says, oh, well, we're going to switch to the Flint River. The mayor and the city council of Flint said, no, the Flint River is horribly contaminated. That's why they don't use it. They haven't taken water out of that place in decades because not only was lead in it, but all of these other toxins were in it. They make the switch anyway. Overnight, those toxins came up into people's homes, all of that stuff, all those corrosives, and destroyed the people's plumbing in their homes. Their fixtures were destroyed. All because of what? Somebody wanted to build a pipeline. So even that story has been incorrectly reported because what they say is that the government officials, the city officials made that decision to change to the Flint River. That is not true. The self-appointed, the governor-appointed city manager made that decision. They haven't even reported that right. And based on what again? Greed.
Yeah. And it's just really, and this is just as an example, this is what the water is looking like.
And now let's also remember too that they still have to pay their water bills, and the water there has been privatized. So their water bills have skyrocketed. So you have to pay for what's killing you. You have to pay for that. We had to do a water boil for about 3 days here back in February after the snowstorm. And people were losing their minds. So you just think about what these people in Flint have to deal with. Because honestly, you're not even supposed to shower in contaminated water because it'll mess your skin up. That's the reason why so many Black kids have eczema and asthma, lead exposure. But again, it goes back to greed. And one of the things that we do in this country, if we no longer hear about a story, we think everything is solved and good. Because our news media, because of its ownership, is only worried about clicks and ratings. So the investigative journalism is gone. I mean, they have cut those budgets. So you're not really getting, I mean, you have a few independent sources, but other than that, no. I've heard this story in Flint explained in the wrong way so much that, it just makes me sick. I mean, I heard people say, well, just change the pipes in Flint. Do you not know how long that's going to take? And then these people that have, this lead exposure, they're not going to just get over this. My sister was lead poisoned as a child and developed brain cancer in her 50s. And again, it goes back to corporate greed. Notice how now these same companies are destroying our environment, contaminating our water, and then turning around, going and buying up our publicly owned water sources and selling bottled water back to us that they pull out of those publicly owned water sources. So you contaminate the water, you create the problem, and then you come along and so-called provide the solution. What if we just don't contaminate our water supplies? Nestle is one of the biggest abusers. They're just pulling water out of everything, out of all, because the cities are strapped for money. So they're selling off our publicly owned water sources, and they're going and selling our own bottled water back to us for $2 a bottle. That's a hustle, ain't it? That's a big hustle. You create the problem, and then you come along with the solution, but to a problem that you created in the first place.
It's it's just really disgusting how all of this has been allowed to happen. And just like you were saying before, like we as much I know the title of this was talking about China, but it's like we have some of the biggest sins in this world.
Yeah, it intersect. All of this intersects on so many levels, and it's crazy how we don't know. I know we all remember Betsy DeVos, right?
Mm-hmm.
She was the education secretary under Trump, and the only thing she could say was the only thing she knew how to say was school choice. She didn't know what else to say, just school choice. That's all she knew how to say. She went to Bethune, what was that, Cookman, and saying how black schools were pioneers when it came to school choices. See, she doesn't even know what the hell she's talking about, because those black students had to go to Bethune-Cookman because they couldn't go to the white schools. But the only thing she knows and all of her wealth and ignorance is school choice, because she's for school choice, for vouchers, for privatizations of schools. But her brother is a man named Eric Prince, who was the owner of Blackwater, which is a private army that shot up and killed a whole bunch of Iraqis back in 2008. That's her brother. That's her brother. He owns a private mercenary army. That's her brother. But notice, mainstream media never talked about that. One of the news sources I watch is Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman. When they first appointed Betsy DeVos, the first thing that Democracy Now! Made a link to was that Eric Prince was her brother. MSNBC, Fox, nobody made that a point. So your brother is a mercenary, a rich mercenary. You come from a wealthy family, and your brother is a mercenary, a psychopath. All of this stuff interconnects. The United States has a high abundance of mental health problems. Look at how we live, where we have to worry about everything every day. And Alan Greenspan and these people that engineered our economy like it is, they said that worker insecurity is a good thing. Us being afraid for our jobs is good for the economy. That's what we're dealing with when we're trying to pretty this thing up. These are the architects. These are the architects of our society. Jeffrey Bezos. Jeffrey Bezos is not a rags to riches story. His family was wealthy. They were wealthy landowners. They gave him $250,000 or $300,000 to start Amazon. He has so much power now is because he has government contracts. He developed surveillance technology for the United States government. Bill Gates comes from a wealthy family. All of the resources that he used in research to create Microsoft was publicly funded information. He took that, privatized it, created Microsoft, and then got all of his daddy's friends to select and make Windows the only thing that you can use. And then they turn around and tell us, well, see, if he can make it, why can't you? Well, it's a whole lot easier to start a Fortune 500 company when you're starting out with $5 million and all of the connections and don't have to worry about paying rent or student loans or all these other things. It's a lot easier to do that. Elon Musk is the new brain genius, right? Family of millionaires out of South Africa. So this is wealth creating even more wealth. And then they're throwing it back in our faces, and saying, oh, well, look, we did it. Now, Elon Musk did go to college. Yes, he did. Went to two of those schools in one in South Africa for whites, and then he went to a school in Great Britain, and then he transferred, I think, to Yale or something over here. But he comes from millionaires who has all of the access, all of the connections. These things that he gets credited for creating, he's not creating them. His R&D department is doing that. And when you're creating things within the confines of these companies, they take ownership of it. And then he goes on there and says, oh, well, look what I created. No, you didn't. But these narratives, and it's crazy how these white people, I mean, it's just so crazy how They get to create their own narratives. They get to write their own stories. It is so funny. Like, this is where we are. And then everybody's so surprised when we find out that Bill Gates is a hoe. We find out Jeffrey Bezos is a hoe when they sleeping and screwing in and everything. Well, that's what they do with power. But we have been so taught to deify these people. Listen to every word they say. Oh, you know, Jeffrey Bezos is saying that. You can't tell me a damn thing. Then turn around and don't even pay your workers. I mean, it's maddening. It's the sickest thing ever. White supremacy, this domination, it is the sickest thing. I was thinking about it being down at the park. You know what the park where Nathan Bedford Forrest's statue used to be. Just like the Sons of Confederacy, they always have somebody on call to watch that spot. So even as we're walking through into the park yesterday, somebody had came and parked like a U-Haul truck, and it was just covered in Confederate symbols. Just parked it right there next to the park. And when you start delving, like, you actually want us to celebrate these people that murdered our folks. Nathan Bedford Forrest burned half of South Memphis. Started one of the first convict leasing programs on President's Island. But he did some nice things. He was the founder of the damn Klan. But we are supposed to show reverence for this man that murdered people that look like us. My family was in South Memphis when he burned it down. My family, my great-grandfather and them were in South Memphis and had to flee. But we are supposed to just worship and celebrate. Oh my God, how can you not? But yet let us bring up anything about Fred Hampton and the Black Panthers and watch these white people blow their tops. Just watch it. You want us to celebrate these very same murderers, but we have to acknowledge every wrong thing that every black person has ever done. And then you throw King in our face, completely, ignoring the fact that you murdered him and you didn't like him when he was alive. Why don't you all do what King do? You killed him.
No, but see, they want a particular king. They want the king that was nice and let's just walk arm in arm and let's ask for something to happen. But they never mentioned the king that said, we coming to get that check. Like, I'm tired of asking. We coming to get that check.
And we're integrating into a burning house. Read his, I invited so many, and this is when I actually cared what a lot of these white people were thinking, because what you're going to realize is that so many of them, they don't know history, but they are just going to argue with you. Like, one of the things that cracks me up about, say, Candace Owens and the other guy, what is the police officer, Tatum?
Sheriff something.
Well, he's not a police officer anymore, but he's funny because he was on an interview about a week ago, and the guy actually handed him his ass. Because what you're going to find is they don't want to have a debate. What they're going to do is they're going to get you up there, and everything that you're going to say, they're just going to say the opposite of. If you say up, they going to say down. If you say left, they going to say right. They don't have any factual information to back up. They just come on there to yell. And honestly, I'm from South Memphis. I can yell, I can do whatever you want me to do. But it's just crazy because this is what we are holding up now. Just nothing. There is nothing that she or Tatum can give that's factual. Nothing, because they don't know. But they think, okay, I'm going to put you on here and I'm just going to yell, and I'm going to yell the opposite of everything you say. And that's the debate. And they're put on these shows because, why? Clickbait. You're going to get more people to click on that, or you're going to get more ratings. That's the reason why you're looking up and seeing these fools being interviewed on major news networks. But yet you won't see a Gerald Horn on there, who's a historian. You won't see a Carol Anderson, who's a black woman historian out of Emory University. She just did a whole book about the true origins of the Second Amendment. And about how they, like, when they talk about the militia groups during the Revolutionary War, how these white people didn't even want to fight. They had to go get a black militia group to help them fight the British because the black militia group was so damn good, but yet they didn't want them to have weapons. I mean, you won't see that type of knowledge on these networks because because it's going to get you to thinking. It's going to show you how just deep rooted this stuff is. Believe it or not, racism and classism, they all exist in this country, and they are both weaponized against black and even poor white people. They are both, they use them both. But if I'm not bringing people on that can show you these connections, I'm just bringing a whole bunch of fools on to get clickbait and ratings. I was listening to something Candace was saying about Juneteenth the other day, and it was hilarious because she knows nothing about it. She knows nothing about it. And then the Tatum guy, he's so funny. He just, because they were talking about how they're finally acknowledging Tulsa. Tulsa, Oklahoma, even though that's not the only black city that they attacked and burned down. But he was like, well, see, them black folks came down to the thing and with their guns, and them white people didn't know what they were going to do. Nigga, shut up. I'm sorry that I said that word, but I mean, that's where it goes, because those black people, and those were black soldiers, by the way, they knew what they were going to do to that black man that they had actually hemmed up and said that he had attacked that white woman. They knew what they were going to do to him. They were going to lynch him. And those black people in that town said, no, we are not going to let you kill this man because we know he didn't do anything. And they went down to that courtroom to say, look, if you mess with him, you mess with all of us. That's exactly what there was, because they knew they knew what they were getting ready to do. That was black people saying, you know what? Step to us if you want. We got our guns too. We got our guns. Let's roll. And what did they do then? They kept the police. The police came and took the black folks' guns. And then that's when they went into Tulsa and burned it down. And so even in that, there's another story. Look how they've always used the police to win these battles. They knew they couldn't whoop those black soldiers. They knew that. So what do? Get the police to take their weapons and then come in and burn the stuff down. So all of this is interconnected. All of it. This whole thing now with China. Like, you remember Hillary Clinton when she was running. What did she call it? The Asia pivot. And see, because of the pandemic, China is now poised to overtake our economy within a couple of years. Before the pandemic, they were saying it was going to be like another decade or two. But now they're poised to overtake our economy in the next couple of years. That's where this hatred of China is really coming from. And they're going to dress it up and they're going to say, oh, well, it's because of the human rights and China may have done this. No, it's because you are losing power in this world. You are losing this power.
That's so for everyone that's been tuning in, please hit the like button. I've been saying that some of y'all have been hitting the like button. Share this video so that more people can see it, and subscribe to the Black Boss channel or subscribe to the JT Effect. Whichever one, you're going to see this video and more good stuff like this. And my main man Frank W. Johnson, if you want to hear more of him, I have him in my previous video. So go to the JT Effect and you'll see previous interviews that I've had with him, and he's just dropping.
I'm looking at your comments. This is funny because they had asked about Candace Owens. I don't even think that Candace is indoctrinated as she pretends to be. This is her hustle. You can make millions of dollars yelling at black folks, especially if you're black. These white people will throw money at you like crazy. But I really think that this is just a straight up hustle for her. I really do. I really believe it's a hustle, and not just her, but the Tatum guy and a lot of these black, I call them Instagram, so-called conservatives. Because when you cannot, one of the things that I was always taught, you ask the who, what, when, where, why, and how. So when somebody makes a case, they need to present evidence. They need to be able to back their point up. She cannot back up any point. She cannot back up anything. The only thing she does, and there's a method to not only her, but Ben Shapiro and all of these people, they talk real loud and they talk real fast. And then they won't allow you to talk. They try to overtalk you, not to give you a chance to kind of refute their claims. That's their gimmick. It's a gimmick. And notice everything she says is about, they want to go back to, it's not having fathers in the home. That's where the problems in the Black community are coming from. Well, let's talk about this then. Why do we have so many younger white people on opiates, crystal meth, and heroin? Evidently, something is not happening in these white families. You have two of the worst epidemics, drug epidemics in the history of this country: opiates and meth and heroin. Right now, we really is three, and is hitting white people. So if our drug problem was because we didn't have fathers in our home, then what is the reason for their drug problem? Why are so many white men shooting up everything? See, we don't hear that. We don't hear that moral talking point when it comes to white people. Why are they committing mass shootings? Why do white men go to schools and shoot up children in schools? Why do they do that?
So they make the excuses. Oh, well, they're stressed out, and they've been going through a lot, and
they don't say anything about it. They just keep going like it's just like, hey, like I'm still waiting for that drug report from Dylan Roof when he shot at that black chick. Because every time the police shoot a black person down, the first thing they do is, we think there were drugs in this system. They're gonna do a drug test. Why didn't we do one on Dylan Roof? Ethan Cap, the rich white boy in Texas who got drunk and ran over and killed all those people, and then got probation, and then violated his probation by leaving the country, and his mother went with him. But they said it was affluenza. He couldn't be held responsible because he didn't know any better. Oh, but we don't say that about black children in trauma. So like this whole narrative, and it's going to get worse because you're going to see Russia. They trying to beat down on Russia, and then it's going to be the normal characters. It's going to be Iran. It's going to be North Korea. It's going to be Venezuela. Like, check this. So right now in the world, the Western nations or the richer nations are hogging all of the COVID vaccines. We're buying them all up, and we're not allowing the so-called third world countries to get access. Now, the crazy thing is that as long as anyone in the world is suffering with this disease, we're all in danger because that virus can mutate, and it has mutated. We have these other different strands. One of the strands, funny, because one of the strands was out of South Africa. South Africa had been saying we need more vaccinations. One of the crazy thing is that they tested the vaccination in Africa, but you won't give them access to the vaccines. Right now with Venezuela, the United States says we're not going to give Venezuela any vaccines. And if you don't know the story of Venezuela, Hugo Chavez and Maduro, look it up. I'm telling you, it's powerful. Hugo Chavez rose up against these people and they hated him for it. So you're going to deny, whether or not you feel about the vaccine or whatever, but you're still going to deny these people access, not because of anything other than the fact that you don't like them. So you're going to allow these folks to potentially die, which endangers all of us because it could mutate. This is what we're dealing with now. Keep that in mind when they tell us about China and human rights violations, because guess what China's doing? China's actually giving folks damn vaccinations. But that's just where we are.
It's just really disgusting in the fact that hogging the vaccinations, not even though we're supposed to be giving freedom and democracy to all these other people, but yet we're not even trying to help these same people that we're touting ourselves to be.
Yeah, we're not. That's what they told them. That's exactly what it is. That's why I laugh at this. I laugh. If you all can, North Korea produced a documentary. It's on YouTube. It might be harder to find now, but it's called Propaganda. And if y'all get a chance, go watch it. It's about an hour and a half. Now, one of the things I don't agree with is what they said about Michael Jackson. Because the whole smearing of Michael, that's a whole nother story we can go into to another day. But the documentary is so funny because they have this robotic voice that's narrating the documentary, and they're just talking about the different facets of they talked about the different facets of American society, and they're just and it's all true. Like they talked about Tyra Banks when she went on the street and pretended like she was homeless, and the voice is just saying, the United States, and it's a very robotic voice. The United States has a horrible homeless problem, and then a rich woman named talk show host named Tyra Banks goes and lives for 2 days, and she's going to analyze these people, even though she's not qualified to do so. And it was just talking about how we're so caught up with celebrity culture and celebrity life. And it's like, look how screwed up our country is, where we just walk over homeless people every day and don't try to do anything about it. But yet here we are trying to lecture the world, talking about human rights and what we should do, but we can't even do these same things in our own country. And it's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. I tell you, if you all get a chance to leave this country and go overseas, take the chance to go. Go see how the rest of the world is. Do not let these people define what the rest of the world is doing. And again, I go back to Gore Vidal. Gore Vidal says we're some of the most uneducated people in the entire world. We're some of the most lied to people in the world. And we think we know everything. That's what's so funny. We think we know everything and we know nothing. If I go to Germany right now, the first time I went to Germany, and you see these people shutting down their businesses at 5:30, not working 40, 60, 70 hours a week. You better not even try to get them to do that. Got public health care, all these things, healthier than us and all of these things, less crime, less everything. But we think we are the only people in the world that have anything. We think everybody else is living in cages. The rest of the world is living so much better than us. We're the ones over here nervous about everything, freaking out. That's why you see this uptick in shootings all over the country. People have become unhinged. People are still on the verge of getting evicted. But again, we don't deal with our issues in this country. We blame everything and everybody. And that's why these problems are worse. And it's interconnected. It's all interconnected. So even when we're talking about China, even when we're talking about all of these countries, we cannot let them tell us who our enemy is. We cannot let them do that. The whole thing with China, you gave it to them. You gave them all. You could really fix it tomorrow. You can fix it. If you don't bring those jobs back over here, we ain't going to allow you to do business. We're not going to allow you to do business in America if you're going to offshore those jobs. And you got tons of smaller business that are really ready and willing to take their places and could. We could do it tomorrow. Did we not get an Asian hate bill within a month? But we can't restore the Voting Rights Act for nothing. That was gutted. They could do it tomorrow, but they don't want to. They don't want to. They just released a call about Joe Manchin, the so-called Democratic guy that's upholding all of this this bullshit. Well, they found that it was a leak call with him and his very billionaire donors. And he's explaining to them how they could get more people to stop this progressive policy that's coming through. He's basically telling them, go pay this person more money, go give this person some money, and they're going to vote for you. They're going to vote along the lines that you want them to vote. Mainstream hasn't called that, but that was in The Intercept. If you don't know The Intercept, go look up The Intercept. And AOC actually brought it up on CNN last week, and notice how it didn't get any traction. She said, we just leaked a call of Joe Manchin on the phone with billionaire donors saying how they could go get these other Republicans to go along with him and what they want if they just go give him some money, if they just go give them some money. Okay, I'm gonna get off my soapbox.
No, man, you dropping some good information, because this is the stuff that we're not hearing on mainstream media, and that is the issue. Like, we're not hearing the truth. We're only being given what these advertisers, what these big companies, big pharma, big tech, they only want us to hear, instead of allowing us to hear the many different sides. And I talked about that before when I was like, it's dangerous when you just they're allowing you to hear one thing, and this is the truth, this is the gospel, without you questioning them.
Yeah,
and
it's called, and in journalism we call that lying by omission. This is like in my journalism classes, this is what they said this stuff was. Lying by omission. I'm gonna say one more thing. We're talking about this war in Iraq. I don't know if you all were old enough to remember, but the first time that we went into Iraq in 1990, and it's on YouTube now, they had to, what Noam Chomsky calls, they have to manufacture consent. So in other words, they're going to present you with just enough information to get you on their side. They used to do that. Now I don't really think they care. They just go bomb folk the way they want to now. But it was Operation Desert Shield and Desert Storm. So this is supposedly when Saddam Hussein sent his forces into Kuwait. He actually didn't send his forces into Kuwait. He sent them to the line because Kuwait, believe it or not, is nothing but one big oil refinery. That's the whole point of the city, to refine the oil of the Middle East. And so when all of this stuff broke out, they went before the United Nations to present their case for war. They bring on this young lady, and I remember it too because her testimony was so gripping, because she said how she volunteered to stay in Kuwait and to help out with the invaders. They went to the hospital, and she said the Iraqi soldiers were pulling babies out of the incubators and dropping them on the floor, and the babies were dying, and she was crying. She's, oh God, it was horrible. And so right after she spoke, the Kuwaiti ambassador came forward and just basically presented his case, saying that we want the United States to come in and help us, defeat Saddam Hussein. What they did not mention is that the young lady that they brought up before the Kuwaiti ambassador, check this out, she wasn't in the country when any of that stuff happened. Wasn't in the country. And the ambassador that spoke after her, that was her father.
What?
They didn't even tell the United Nations that they were father and daughter. So this whole line about the baby, and they ran their babies in the incubators left and right on every news channel then. And it was all a lie. Just like us going into Iraq in 2002 was a what? A lie.
It's just amazing how corrupt and there's been so many people that I've talked to before, even people close to me, that just like when I tell them I'm concerned that this could happen, that they can, that can never happen again. I'm like, man, just because are same thing like when Trump got elected, when people are like, oh, that would never happen. I was like, hey, don't ever think that just because
had people, whoo, God. I had people that were pissed at me, and see that this binary thinking been conditioned into. Oh, well, if you ain't saying this about Hillary Clinton, then you supporting Trump. No, I'm going on American history. I had folks that told me, well, he'll never be elected because this is America. Have you not looked at American history? I said he very well. And if you have been following the fallout from Barack Obama being elected, you saw the vitriol. You saw all of this stuff. And then you're going to sit here and tell me that he would not be elected because this is America. Excuse me. I could be elected because this is America. And what happened? And then even in this last election, now, and let me get something straight. I'm not out here cheering Joe Biden at all. I think I said that the last time I was on your show. Both of these parties are horrible. They both work for the same people. And Joe Biden got dementia, and I don't know why people act like he don't have dementia, but hey, that's another thing. But and even in the last one, the majority of white people still voted for Donald Trump. And the only reason why they didn't like Donald Trump is because he was just blatant and just abrasive. That's really all it was. If he would have been nice and patted them on the head, they would have went right along with him. They would have went right along. Now, the scary thing is is because the Democrats are not going to do anything. They're going to play this helpless role like they did in 2008 because they work for the exact same people. You're going to end up getting something worse. You're going to end up with something worse. And this time, the fool is going to be competent. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, and it's funny. It's you have people coming and like, yeah, even white women even more voted for Trump. I mean,
they did. And also, Patrick, to your point, Patrick, you notice how when they thought that Trump was going to get elected again, the very first thing they started doing was what? This was the Democrats. Democrats. They started blaming black folk.
Exactly.
Oh, didn't get out and vote. Oh, black folk. Blah, 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 blah. And this time, black folks said, oh, hell no. We voted again overwhelmingly for Joe Biden. No. You look at yourself. Now, notice, we ain't not had not one conversation about how the majority of white people, and like you said, the majority of white women still voted for him. Mm-hmm. Notice they're never critiqued about the way that they vote. We are critiqued about everything. Because the first thing they did exactly what they claim the Republicans do and these conservatives. The liberal white people blamed black folk all again.
Yeah. They claim to be our friends. Claim to be our friends, but blame us for anything so go wrong.
And look what's happening all throughout the country right now. Another push for voter suppression. Where are we at on that? The only people that I've seen stand up against these voter suppression laws are them folks down there in Texas because they got their butts out and left the chambers so they couldn't even vote on the voter suppression bill down there. You've been watching them gut the Civil Rights Act and you said nothing. Where's the Democratic Party when all our voting rights have been under attack for the last 10 years? But yet, as soon as the election doesn't go the way they want to, these good liberal white people blame black folk. Black folk need to get out and vote. Get the hell out of here.
Yeah, it's crazy because we're all and I saw not only that, but you have the people who supposedly that are supposed to be on our side, that look like us. Same thing we talked about earlier. Barack Obama stopping that strike. Barack Obama and Michelle Obama came out and
he ain't said nothing since.
Yeah, and they said the same thing. It was like black people need to get out and vote, and it's basically black people's fault that all the yada yada. And it's just like why are we being shamed for? And we, if we are not, I think Dr. Claude Anderson said this before. Black people are the most patriotic group in America. We are the most. We go out and we fight wars and come back home and get spit on, get hung, get discriminated against. All this other. Black people are the most patriotic group in this country, but yet we do not get the respect, nor do we get any tangibles for it. We get all this symbolism, and even though I'm glad that they are acknowledging Juneteenth, that's not giving us anything. It's not.
I'm like this, run me my money. Look, one of the things that is so cracked me up like right now with the stimulus stuff, and you just hear folk, well, you don't need to be, baby, that's your money. It's your money. It's your money. The government doesn't have a dime without taxpayer money. All they did was give you your money. And if you also know, in most countries, for instance, Great Britain, those citizens still got their salaries paid to them while they stayed at home for the pandemic. Why couldn't we do that?
Agreed.
I got one of my friends I grew up with, Lisa. She lives in Great Britain. And just show you how cold black folks are. She grew up in South Memphis just like me. She can teach Spanish and mathematics. She's taught in Sweden, the United Arab Emirates, all in that region of the world from South Memphis. How are you over here teaching Spanish in Sweden? But she said in Great Britain, they got their salaries. When they said stay at home, they got their pay. So didn't that many folks get fired? They could still live. They could still exist. Didn't have to worry about. There were freezes on mortgages and rents and all of that. Why couldn't we do that here? Because of greed. And now we have an eviction crisis that's coming up. Let's see how we're going to handle that. And at the same time, while people are being put out, what did we say right before we came on, John? You have BlackRock, which is going in cash only, buying up whole neighborhoods. So they're finna turn this country back into a country full of renters. that they control and that it can put you out at any time. Raise the prices and also get ready for another collapse because this housing bubble is going to burst.
That's crazy.
Again, this empire is collapsing, and so they're going to target China and going to do everything they can to try to destabilize them over mistakes that they've made here. And so what they're going to do is they're going to say any and every bad thing they can about Russia and China to demonize them, because what they're doing is they're creating consent for them to go bomb folks, for them to do what they call it, sanctions. Mm-hmm. They're going to try to justify all of that. That's all of this. All this is. You've been giving China. You gave China our warehouses. You gave them all of this stuff. Yep. And Patrick, you're right. They're hitting black women the hardest. But you gave China all of this for the last 40, 50 years. Now that you've woken up out of your self-imposed coma, and you're, we finna be in trouble. We're not gonna be dominant. Oh, well, they bad. Look how they do their people. Look how you do your people.
Oh my goodness, man. This is wow. That's amazing. See, I wish they would have you. I mean, I have you here, so that's great. I'm glad I have you here. That's all. I don't need white media, but I just wish, because so many more white people watch, like MSN and the CNN. Mm-hmm. I wish I can hear you on there and tear them.
Well, we do it too. I probably been got to fighting on it. Look, one of my if y'all heard of Marquita Bradshaw, she was the one, the first black woman out of Tennessee to get the nomination for Senate. Me and Marquita grew up together. So her mother is the one that actually started the fight against the Defense Depot in the 1980s, when they discovered that it was messing with us, with the children and the adults and stuff. So Marquita beat out Mackler, who was the white male Democratic person that was running for the job. He got $2.3 million from the Democratic Party, from the National Democratic Party. Marquita had $8,000 and beat him. Now, let me tell you, an historic win. How is this little black woman, environmental justice activist out of South Memphis, beat this man with $2.3 million and she only had $8,000? I'll tell you what she did. When she was helping me with my campaign, there are 95 counties in Tennessee. She went to every county in Tennessee. Let me tell you just how much of an impression that she made. Pulaski County in Tennessee, that is the county where the Ku Klux Klan was founded. Woman calls me from Pulaski County, white woman. She said, Mr. Johnson, we want Marquita in this seat in Pulaski County. We know that you all will not feel comfortable coming to Pulaski County because this is where the Ku Klux Klan was founded. She said, send us flyers, yard signs, and literature, and we will do the work here. Marquita still went to Pulaski County, but this white woman, out of her own mouth, knew the history of that country, knew the history of that county, acknowledged it, and then said, we know y'all ain't gonna feel comfortable coming up here, but we need her in office. Send us the materials and we'll do all the work for her. Because why? Marquita was speaking to the needs of not only black people, but working white people too. Now, let me tell you let me tell you all of this hype that she generated. She was on, all of the independent channels were talking about Marquita. They were just like, this black woman beat this establishment candidate to get that nomination. First time it's ever happened. The Democratic Party did not give Marquita a dime after that. All of this, she showed you that there is a chance to elect a black woman as senator out of Tennessee. And the Democratic Party took their hands off, did not give her a dime. She still was able to raise about $2-something million. But you just think if the Democratic Party had nailed in had have dug down with her campaign, we would have a black female senator from South Memphis right now. But because the white boy didn't win who they wanted, they decided not to even support the campaign. Never mind this whole all of this momentum behind her. They just took their hands off. Her campaign manager, a good guy named Ken. Ken passed away in January. Great guy. He's the one that convinced me to run. He told me, he said, I've been working for the Democratic Party since I graduated from college, over 20 years. He said, I am disgusted with my whole party because they didn't give her $1 of support after she pulled off that upset. So that just shows you they're not for putting, the Democratic Party is not for putting good candidates in office themselves. They only want the establishment. They got their behind. They didn't win as much in this last election because they are still running Republican-like candidates. They are still running Republican-like. Yeah, you got the graphic up. They are still running Republican. And then as soon as they didn't win enough seats, what was the first thing they did? This woman out of South Carolina. Well, they can't win because, see, the Democrats been around here saying stuff like defund the police. That's not why you lost. Cori Bush them won. Jamal Bowman them won. The candidates that you ran, your establishment candidates are the ones that didn't win. And they weren't talking about defund the police. They were saying the same thing. The ambiguous, not really making a point. But again, it just shows you how even on the Democratic side, they are beholden to rich billionaire money too. All right, I'm be quiet. now.
No, it's got, actually, I wanted to point out that somebody said they suggest that you create a YouTube channel. I think you already have one, right?
I mean, I got one, but I got some other stuff. I do need to do this.
Yeah, man. I mean, and that's why I brought Frank on here, because, and I continue to bring him on here because he is well educated, very articulate. His parents did an amazing job, and his parents were very smart. And his parents, we talk about B1 on here. His parents were B1, black first.
I learned black love from I'm so thankful now. Like my mom, them, they weren't, they didn't have all these degrees and, all of this stuff, but they had a sense of history. And what I just began, like my daddy told me about Tulsa when I was a little boy, about how white people burn these black cities and stuff down. And then you get to college and you read about the stuff and it's like, this is what my mom, but I had to remember that my father would have been 89 years old. He was the youngest of 7 kids. They lived through so much of this. Like, and I discovered right after my dad died, I learned about his father. No pictures of Frank Johnson. That was his name, Frank Johnson. No pictures of him or nothing. He was an escaped slave from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, born in 1888. And slavery was still going strong in Louisiana. He stowed away on a ship and rowed it up to Memphis. So I was only, it just jumps around in my head. If I had been born 20 years earlier, like some of my other cousins, I would have met my grandfather, who was a slave. So when they say that slavery was a long time ago, like I am 20 years removed from meeting a slave. My daddy's hands and my aunts and uncles on his side touched the hand of a slave. And then like that whole song, Wade in the Water, took on a whole different meaning for me because that's what he did. He waded in the water and climbed up on a ship, stowed away on it and rowed it from Baton Rouge, Louisiana up to Memphis because some part of him knew that he was not supposed to be enslaved. And my father and them lived through I didn't even realize until later on that my daddy had post-traumatic stress disorder from being in Korea. He would flip some nights. He would think he was still there. And wouldn't even talk about it until much later about his experience in Korea. So you just that's the pain, you know, that my folks and through all of that, my daddy still found a way to even keep a level head. You know, wouldn't even allow his children, he wouldn't even buy me GI Joes as a child. Like, you are not getting anything related to the military. And was adamant, you better not even look at an Army recruiter. You better not even look that way. And I mean, this is our legacy and this is our history. But we've been letting folks make us feel ashamed. We've been trying to jump over there and be over there like these white. No. You have a whole history of Black people fighting this stuff, resisting. And then you think I'm finna get out here and lie? You know, just to impress some white people who don't care about me anyway? Nah, you can get up out of here with that. Man, my mom and them lived through that stuff. My mom and them was walking in through the back doors, you know, the colored doors, drinking out the colored water. They lived through that stuff. They lived through that. And then you want me to deny, you know, the experiences of my people, of my folks, while I just accept the illusion that white supremacy wants to give me. Oh, that's not going to happen here. And I appreciate them because they told me the truth about this country. That was constantly. My mama taught me about Black beauty, how all shades, she was a very light-skinned woman, but every shade of Black women was beautiful. Daddy would tell us about how Africa, well, he didn't say Africa, he would say Akafa. Akafa is a beautiful country. They show you these distorted images of Black people because that's how they want you to think about us. But it's the most beautiful country. It's the most beautiful continent in the world. These were my daddy didn't even finish high school. So it's like, I can't do nothing but come out and say the same thing to people. And then even now, we're looking at the decline of this empire. And just show you how barbaric that we are, how we've been conditioned. We're still trying to fit ourselves into this system, even though it's collapsing around us right now. It's collapsing, and it's been collapsing. It didn't start with Donald Trump. It didn't start with Obama. This decline has been happening over decades. And here we are. Here we are. It's caught up with us. And what I can say is, like, learn who your neighbors are, reconnect to other Black people, because things are going to get even more hectic than what they already are now.
Yeah. So I guess for everybody that's watching, if you haven't hit the like button, please hit the like button. Share this video. It's imperative that this message gets out, and we tell our own. We tell the truth, but also we tell our history, our story. Mm-hmm. And we just be honest about what's going on, what's happening. Frank, before we head out of here, my last question for you is, what can we do? With all of this that's been said recently, what can we do moving forward to try to change? Because I know that the course is already set, but what can we do as a Black community, or just as people, American people, to at least expose or bring to light even more what's happening, to try to make things better, or to, I don't know, lessen the blow?
Well, I will say this. Always stay open to learning. We got this thing in our head to where we just, I'm educated. No, education never stops. You know, read A People's History of the United States. Look up Gerald Horne. Look up Eddie Glaude. Look up Carol Anderson. Read these people. It's literature. Read, and then suggest it to your friends. You know, talk about these things and stop being. One of the things I really hate that we do, we're still trying to get white people to like us. I was looking at a video of this guy that was in a sushi restaurant, and they asked him to leave because of his his sneakers, but he wants to point out to them that the white woman has on sneakers and they giving her no problem. Bruh, leave. If they don't want you in there, stop trying to convince them. Mm-hmm. Stop trying to make white people like you. Stop. Learn as much as you can. I would say learn as much as you can about the community that you live in. Learn how. One of the things I'm trying to do now in the neighborhood is we have an elder over here that's been doing farming. His family's been farming over here for decades, but he's elderly. So we're trying to get him to restart his farm. And so he could teach some of the children how to start back to growing food for themselves. Because look at what happened with our pandemic last year. The supply chains got messed up because we don't buy food. Our grocery stores don't buy food from locally owned people anymore. They're shipping it in. So we have to start investing our time and our knowledge back into the communities that we live in. If you can pay off your bills, pay your bills off. But learn who your neighbor is, start building relationships, because that might be the way that we have to survive. Even now, with everything supposedly getting back to full bloom, the grocery stores are still half empty. The shelves in the grocery stores are still not full. So we have to dig back in. All of this aspiring to get the bag, and we could literally wake up tomorrow and our whole economic system has collapsed. So all that bag you got is worthless. All those dollars you got is worthless. But what do we need? Food, water. Just delve back in. Use your talents to rebuild these Black communities that you're already in. Don't take on all of this debt now. You don't need that brand new $30,000 car. If you need a car, try to do your best to not to get one. If you do, look at getting a used car. Try to cut as much expenses as you can. And go in the backyard, read, look at some YouTube videos, get some seeds, start growing stuff. Just start doing holistic stuff and stop trying to chase what we're seeing on these television shows and what we're being told. We're not going to survive that way. We're not going to. So it's about investment. Dig where you are. Get that shovel and start digging down deep where you are. I know we want to go buy the house, and no. If you living somewhere now and you're comfortable, stay there. It's just time to rebuild. This country is not going to bounce back. It's never bounced back from all these collapses. It has never bounced back. It's only gotten harder for working people. That's all it has. That's all it's done. Take care of yourself, exercise, try to eat right, spread the knowledge and information. Encourage people. Stop trying to force your way into situations that you're not welcome. These white people are not going to do anything now but get more and more outrageous. You can't argue with people that don't see you as human. You can't. But what you can do, spread that word to younger Black people. Tell them about the history, convince them to believe in themselves, not these other folks, just so you can go in and buy a pair of shoes or get something to eat. It's probably some Black business that's cooking that food much better than what those people are anyway. One of the things I loved yesterday going to these Juneteenth celebrations was seeing Black folk happy being around other Black folk. Really, that's really what got me. It was a group of older Black women at Lemoyne College. They were straight up in the middle of the field doing line dances, just having a good time, and that's what we need to do. But we've been groomed to mistrust people, mistrust our own selves. And yet these white people have been stealing from us for forever, and we don't say anything about it. But we'll go off if one Black person does us wrong, we'll lose our mind. Or one Black business doesn't give us enough napkins. Well, they don't know how to treat customers, but yet you go into McDonald's and they messing up your order every other time.
And feeding you poison.
And feeding you poison.
Mm-hmm.
So dig down where you are. Learn this history. You can't YouTube your way into knowledge. You're gonna have to spend some time. You're gonna have to spend some time learning. One of the books I'm rereading now, Our Kind of People, Lawrence Otis Graham. He passed away a few months ago at 59. This is the story of the Black bourgeoisie in America. And even in reading this book, you're going to see how so much of what we consider Black upper class and Black bourgeoisie is just centered on whiteness. How the Black people that can imitate what we think white people do the best. That's all it is. He was talking about his grandmother, how she would say things about Black people in the civil rights struggle, calling them little nappy heads, because she was a very light-skinned woman. And he said how she knew what they were struggling against was real, but she couldn't be seen supporting that because she had to, in her mind, imitate what she thought white people were thinking and doing. And that's all that this stuff is. You know, as much money, they say in the book how much money Bill Cosby had, but he wasn't invited into the black bourgeoisie. He wasn't invited to those clubs, but they liked his wife because she had connections to Spelman and academic ties, and she was very light-skinned. So read and dissect. We have to dissect our minds from this white supremacist system because it's destroyed us mentally. All they were trying to do in this book was trying to basically outdo white people. And that's how they were gauging all of this. So read as much. We got black people out here that have been writing, putting this information out. Like I said, Carol Anderson at Emory University, she has lectures on YouTube. If you do have to use YouTube for something, YouTube these people's lectures. Gerald Horn, Eddie Glaude. I mean, these people have been doing the research and putting out work. If you got to use YouTube for anything, YouTube their lectures and still buy their books. Dissect this and then look how and connect it to what we're dealing with today. Because that's all it is. This is how we got here. We think, what if they say when Russia fell, this country said this is the end of history? That's impossible. That's impossible. You didn't just appear. And when you start delving and digging, you're going to see that they were saying the same things about, they were calling us criminals then, so they could put us in jail, so they can put us back on the plantation. That's exactly what they're doing now. They're calling us criminals. The same stuff. The same stuff.
Thank you, Frank, man. I appreciate you sharing your time with not only myself, but the rest of the audience here. I'm constantly loving just the education that you give out behind everything that's going on, and it seems like everybody else is really loving it too. So again, just please feel. I mean, I know some of you have already been giving your flowers. Please feel free to give Frank a virtual round of applause for sharing his time here, because it's very needed, and I appreciate it. We need more of that. And not enough of the truth tellers are getting the spotlight because they're being silenced. They're being, ignored them. So that's why I'm glad you're out there speaking the truth, not being afraid, not being ashamed, and just holding a mirror up to not only America, but even to us as well, just to kind of show us like, hey, look, this is what's going on. And this is what, and out of love. And I hear the love that is coming out of you for your own people. And I appreciate that, man. And for everybody that, if you want to continue, and also I want to give a shout out to Darren Jacob. He's the one that said he wanted you back. So so for those who for those who listen, I mean who leave comments, and I read the comments, I listen to what you're saying, I take into account what you're saying, because you're the audience that watch. You allow me to keep putting this stuff out there, and I thank y'all for that. I thank you for allowing me to present something like this, because like I said, mainstream media isn't showing a lot of people on YouTube that we follow. They aren't talking like this either. So they're not bringing people who will really give us the history, not only just the truth, but the history behind it. So that's what I want to bring to this channel. And if you want to support this channel and because this is black owned, no white person is telling us what to do, telling me what to say. Feel free to contribute. You can patronize it on the JT Effect. You can give $1, $5, or $10 if you just go to anchor.fm/the JT Effect/support. Again, that's anchor.fm/the JT Effect/support. If you want to give that amount, or if you want to give more than that, you can go to paypal.me/Thomas Harriet Visions, or you can cash at me there. You can cash at me there. And I appreciate you. I want to also give a shout out to, I guess, a monthly supporter of mine, Barbara. I appreciate you, Barbara, and appreciate everyone else who has cashed out before. And please continue to do so that way I can start pushing more of these videos out. And actually, the more that y'all give, the more videos that I can do of this. I don't have to go to work as much, because this can be my work, and I can bring.
Yes.
Yes. I want to. I really want to give us something to be proud of, and not have our enemy tell us what's the truth, because they're not going to tell us the truth. They're going to tell us lies, and just like Frank said earlier, lies by omission. I'm not trying to do that here. So thank y'all for tuning in. Again, hit the like button if you haven't. Share this video and tell your friends to watch, and continue to leave comments. And I'm looking forward to hearing what y'all say. I appreciate y'all, because y'all are amazing. I love the audience here. Thank you, Frank. And thank you, Darlene. Darlene was great today. So was Patrick. Monica, Hyper Focus, Quintessential, everybody that tuned in. Jerry, Pry. I appreciate all of y'all. If I miss some of y'all, I'm sorry. But I love y'all, and we'll see y'all the next time on the JT Effect, and also on the Black Boss channel. Y'all have a great rest of the day.
Peace out.